interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin. The Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor.
On December 7th, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. The next day, President Roosevelt declared before the nation that the United States had entered into World War II.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
Thousands of young men from across the country were drafted or enlisted into the military. One young man on the south side of Chicago in the Pullman neighborhood named Steve Sturbiak answered the call to service and joined the U.S. Army shortly after. My name is Marilyn Gartelmann Quiroz, and we're standing in historic Pullman on the south side of Chicago. Well, that young man was none other than Steve Sturbiak, my Uncle Steve. Steve Sturbiak was born on January 11th, 1918, and was the only living son of my grandparents Michael Sturbiak and Mary Opalak Sturbiak. My grandparents had 6 children. 3 did not survive infancy. Then there was my mother Sophie, my Aunt Rose, and my Uncle Steve. After Pearl Harbor, he enlisted into the United States Army and was sent to Tennessee for boot camp. Recently, I was going through old family papers and an envelope that was yellowish caught my eye. I opened the envelope very carefully as it was very fragile and found that it was a letter from my Uncle Steve to my mother Sophie, and the date on it was 1942. He was writing giving her news on daily life in boot camp and was wondering how she, along with my father Charlie Gartelmann, my brother Dickie, and I were doing back in Chicago. Reading it now, I can still hear my Uncle Steve's gravelly voice, and his words transport me back in time. January 5th, 1942.
January 5th, 1942. Dear Sophie, I hope you are not angry with me for not writing sooner than I did. To tell you the truth, I was very busy. Well, Sophie, I hope you enjoyed your Christmas and New Year's. I suppose Dickie got plenty of presents, which no doubt he is very happy with. I am extremely sorry for not buying him a gift, but I do hope to bring him something if we do get our bonus, which is very slim, but I still have my fingers crossed.
My older brother Dickie was the first nephew, so he always got special treatment from Uncle Steve. During World War II, the soldiers were not allowed to inform their friends and family what they were doing in boot camp, where they were headed, because they were afraid that the Nazis would intercept this information and use it against them. I suppose my Uncle Steve was bored and wanted to find out what was going on in Pullman.
I haven't got much to say now. As you know, I am not supposed to say anything about camp in my letters. So I hope you will not be sore at me for not writing a very long letter. What have you been doing with yourself lately? I suppose you've been playing your share of pinochle games, or have you? Since I have gone into the Army, I would like to know how you spend your evenings. I sure would like to be there to play some cards. So I reckon I better stick to the news of today.
My grandmother Mary was very close to her only son, and I can only imagine how worried she must have been when he was away at war. Life in the military was not easy.
This place is driving me nuts as far as the weather is concerned. Yesterday we had snow and rain, and today the temperature has dropped to 0, and to top it all off, we have to drill in this cold weather. All I can say to that is, thank God we have warm clothing.
My mother Sophie was a great baker. I guess Uncle Steve felt the same way.
I also would like to thank you for the wonderful fruitcake and cookies that you sent me. I sure did like them. So I guess I will close now. I hope you will write soon, and before I forget, I want you to say hello to everybody for me. So God be with you in your everlasting wish for peace and security of home. So I will sign off. Adios, amigo. Your kid brother, Steve. P.S. Say hello to Charlie, And a hello to the little rascal Dickie. Also Marilyn. Dickie, take care of yourself, or I will come home and spank you.
Uncle Steve later went on to serve with distinction in the South Pacific. He was one of the lucky ones. He survived the war and got to come back home. After the war, he married Stephanie Sipolowski at St. Peter and Paul's Ukrainian Orthodox Church on 92nd and Avalon in Burnside in the early 1950s. They moved to Chicago Heights and had one son, my cousin Stevie. On May 10, 1984, Steve Sturbiak died and was buried at Mount Hope Cemetery in Chicago. While he's been gone for decades now, reading his letters home to my mom during World War II keep his memory alive and well. Across the street from my home in historic Pullman now stands a monument dedicated to the neighborhood boys who gave their lives during wartime over the years. Their sacrifice and the sacrifice of those Pullman residents who lived during the greatest generation will never be forgotten.